Here's a fact that will blow your mind. In a study from India, about 2/3 of people with mental illness still believe their symptoms are caused by supernatural forces like witchcraft or evil spirits. But here's the twist. When scientists examined historical accounts of demonic possession from medieval Europe, they found striking similarities to conditions we now understand as psychological disorders. Modern psychology offers a framework called the diathesis-stress model that explains how these mysterious episodes actually unfold. Today, we're comparing real case studies from the past with modern diagnoses to uncover a truth that's both fascinating and deeply unsettling about how we perceive mental illness. Let's start with one of history's most terrifying mysteries: the dancing plague that terrorized Europe. Picture this. Hundreds of people suddenly start dancing in the streets, unable to stop, screaming about terrifying visions as they dance themselves to death. Their bodies twist and jerk in unnatural ways. Foam drips from their mouths. They cry out about demons surrounding them, begging for mercy from invisible tormentors. This wasn't some medieval horror story. This actually happened across Western Europe, with sporadic outbreaks from the 11th to 17th centuries, most notably in 1518 Strasbourg. The dancing mania epidemic swept through towns and villages during this period. In Strasbourg in 1518, a woman named Frau Trophea stepped into the street and began dancing. She couldn't stop. Within a week, 34 others had joined her. By the end of the month, around 400 people were trapped in this deadly dance. Some collapsed from exhaustion. Others died from heart attacks or strokes. Medieval people had clear explanations for these outbreaks. The church declared it demonic possession. Evil spirits had invaded these poor souls and forced them to dance. Local authorities blamed witchcraft, pointing fingers at suspected sorcerers who had cursed entire communities. Some believed it was divine punishment for sins, a wrathful God striking down the wicked through supernatural torment. The symptoms were absolutely horrifying to witness. Victims would dance for days, sometimes weeks, without rest. Their movements became violent and erratic. They foamed at the mouth like rabid animals. Many reported seeing devils and demons surrounding them. Some screamed about being tormented by invisible flames. Others begged onlookers to tie them down or beat them to make the dancing stop. Communities responded the only way they knew how. Priests performed mass exorcisms, sprinkling holy water on the dancers. They held special church services, praying for the demons to release their grip. Some towns hired musicians, believing that playing certain songs might break the evil spell. Others brought in holy relics, hoping divine intervention would save the afflicted. Here's what makes these outbreaks even more mysterious. They followed a disturbing pattern. Most happened during times of terrible hardship. Famines had left people starving. Plagues had wiped out entire families. Religious wars had torn communities apart. The dancing mania seemed to strike when people had reached their breaking point. The victims were mostly young women living in convents and religious communities. Once one person started dancing, others would quickly follow. The condition spread like wildfire through these tight-knit groups, as if the madness itself was contagious. Entire convents would fall victim within days. Modern historians like John Waller suggest these outbreaks resulted from social contagion and extreme psychological stress, essentially mass psychogenic illness triggered by unbearable living conditions. What medieval people interpreted as supernatural possession might have been something entirely different. But to understand how this actually works, we need to examine the science behind psychological breaking points. When your brain breaks under pressure, scientists have discovered a well-tested framework for understanding when someone's mind snaps under pressure. It's called the diathesis-stress model, and it's the scientific bridge that connects medieval possession cases to modern psychology. This isn't some complicated theory. It's actually pretty simple once you understand it. The framework works like this. Genetic predisposition plus environmental stressors equals psychological breakdown. Think about it like a bucket that can only hold so much water before it overflows. Some people have bigger buckets, they can handle more stress. Others have smaller ones. But everyone has a breaking point. This model reveals that anyone can develop psychological symptoms under the right conditions. It's not about being weak or cursed. Let's say you have a genetic tendency toward anxiety. Under normal circumstances, you might never know it. But then you lose your job, your relationship falls apart, and your parent gets sick all in the same month. That combination of stressors might push you over the edge into a full anxiety disorder. The same principle applied in medieval times, except the stressors were even more intense. Medieval conditions created perfect storms for psychological breakdown. Imagine living in constant hunger because of famine. Your brain literally can't function properly without proper nutrition. Add the constant fear of death from plague or war. Throw in religious extremism that taught you to fear eternal damnation for the smallest sins. Top it off with social isolation in cramped, unhealthy living conditions. Research shows that trauma literally changes brain chemistry. When your brain gets overwhelmed by stress hormones like cortisol during famines or wars, it becomes more susceptible to hallucinations and dissociative episodes. Your perception of reality starts to break down. You might see things that aren't there or feel disconnected from your own body. Here's the shocking truth. Many possessed individuals showed classic symptoms of what we now call PTSD, dissociative disorders, and psychotic episodes. That woman who claimed demons were surrounding her, she might have been experiencing tactile hallucinations from severe trauma. The priest who heard Satan's voice commanding him to sin. Auditory hallucinations are common in stress-induced psychosis. The human brain's response to extreme stress hasn't changed over centuries. Only our understanding has evolved from supernatural to scientific explanations. We've learned that what our ancestors called demonic possession often had very human, very biological causes. But even with all our scientific knowledge, something fascinating happens when people face mental illness today. Why we still believe in demons? In 2024, a shocking number of people worldwide still believe mental illness is caused by evil spirits, and the reasons why will surprise you. Even in our age of smartphones and medical breakthroughs, supernatural explanations for psychological disorders remain incredibly common across the globe. Research from India shows that about 70% of patients attribute their mental illness to supernatural causes like sorcery, planetary influences, or evil spirits. Here's the psychological paradox that makes no sense at first glance. Why do humans default to supernatural explanations even when scientific ones are readily available? You'd think education would eliminate these beliefs, but research shows they persist even among people with college degrees and access to modern health care. Contemporary examples are everywhere if you know where to look. In Nigerian communities, families routinely attribute schizophrenia to witchcraft. When someone starts hearing voices or acting strangely, the first response isn't calling a doctor. It's seeking out traditional healers who specialize in breaking curses. Indian families follow a similar pattern, consulting tantric healers before ever considering a psychiatrist. Even in areas with medical access, many still consult traditional healers first. The hidden function of supernatural beliefs reveals something fascinating about human psychology. These explanations provide a sense of control and meaning when facing the terrifying randomness of mental illness. Imagine your teenage son suddenly starts talking to invisible people and refuses to leave his room. Which explanation feels more manageable? A brain disease with no clear cause, or evil spirits that can potentially be driven away through ritual? Research shows that paranormal beliefs actually serve as coping mechanisms. They offer hope when medical treatments fail. They provide community support through shared religious practices. They give families something active to do instead of feeling helpless. One study found that belief in supernatural evil is positively associated with general anxiety and paranoia, but it also discovered that strong religious faith can buffer these negative effects. The dark side emerges when supernatural interpretations delay proper treatment. Studies show that patients who initially seek help from faith healers experience significantly longer periods without psychiatric care, sometimes months longer than those who go directly to medical professionals. This delay makes symptoms worse and leads to poorer outcomes. The persistence of supernatural beliefs reveals something profound about human psychology. Our brains are wired to find patterns and agency even in chaos. When faced with mental illness, we create explanations that restore order to our world. But this drive to find meaning raises deeper questions about human nature itself. In conclusion, understanding this pattern changes everything about how we approach mental health today. The most chilling truth isn't that people once believed in demons. It's that our need to find meaning in suffering is so powerful that we'll create supernatural explanations even when science offers answers. Think about your own reactions when someone you know struggles with mental illness. Do you secretly wonder what caused it? Do you look for reasons or blame? Next time you meet someone facing a mental health crisis, pause before assuming supernatural causes. Science shows trauma and biology are at work, and understanding that can save lives. I'm curious, what local beliefs about mental illness have you encountered in your community? Share your experiences in the comments below.